Imagine a sanctuary older than the wheel, older than pottery, older than Stonehenge by millennia, raised by hunter-gatherers, carved with foxes, cranes, boars, and silent symbols, and then carefully buried by the very people who built it. This is Göbekli Tepe, on a windswept ridge above the plains of southeastern Turkey. What would move a community to close a sacred place in stone? Why would you fill your own masterpiece? Göbekli Tepe sits about 15 kilometers northeast of modern Şanlıurfa. From above, it looks like a crown of shallow bowls set into the limestone bedrock. Inside those bowls stand T-shaped pillars, some over 5 meters tall, arranged in circular and oval rooms we call enclosures. Archaeologists date the main phases to the pre-pottery Neolithic, roughly 9,600–8,200 BCE. That means these buildings rise from the very start of settled life. When communities were experimenting with staying longer in one place, sharing rituals, feasting, and maybe, just maybe, reimagining what society could be. The hill itself was known to locals for generations. Its Kurdish name, Potbelly Hill, described the rounded mound. Scattered flints and limestone hinted at human activity, but the scale of the site wasn't clear until systematic work began in the 1990s. The late archaeologist Klaus Schmidt and the German Archaeological Institute re-examined the hill and realized the mounds were not natural. Beneath the surface were these ringed enclosures anchored by towering pillars, each pillar a stylized human figure, arms carved along the sides, hands clasped over the belly. Suddenly, we weren't looking at random stones. We were standing in a purpose-built ceremonial landscape. Göbekli Tepe's pillars are icons. In relief, you see foxes mid-stride. There is also serpents coiling, wild boars, aurochs, cranes, vultures, and abstract signs. Finally, belts, loincloths, H-shapes, and nested motifs whose meanings we haven't fully cracked. Two central pillars face each other in silent dialogue, ringed by smaller pillars and stone benches. This wasn't a domestic village. There's no clear evidence for hearths inside the enclosures, no typical household debris. The architecture and art point to gathering, display, and ritual. When excavators cleared the rings, they didn't find open, abandoned rooms slowly silted by time. They found packed fill, a deliberate backfill made of small limestone rubble mixed with flaked stone tools, animal bones, and even fragments of sculptures. The composition is surprisingly uniform across different enclosures and places. Broken carved pieces appear to have been placed with intention before the last layers went in. The dating of the fill sits close to the use life of the buildings, suggesting closure happened soon after, not centuries later. In other words, people chose to bury these spaces. That single fact reframes the whole site. Göbekli Tepe wasn't simply abandoned. It was retired. If you picture small, quiet ceremonies, stretch the picture bigger. Researchers have found hundreds of stone vessels, troughs that could hold impressive volumes of liquid, and grinding stones for processing cereals. Traces on tools and plant remains point to large-scale food preparation, evidence for feasting. Imagine groups arriving with meat from hunts, with grain gathered or cultivated in early experiments, with drink. Imagine performances around those shining pillars, stories carried between groups, alliances formed, marriages arranged, identities reaffirmed. The rituals here wasn't a side activity. It may have held communities together at a moment when the scale of social life was expanding. So why bury it? Archaeologists propose several explanations, none exclusive, and all grounded in the evidence. Was it ritual closure? Many societies close sacred spaces when their time ends. The uniform fill, the careful placements, and the recency of the backfill suggest closure, as a ceremonial act. Backfilling isn't a dismissal. It's a way to mark completion. Think of it like drawing a veil over a performance that mattered. Was it architectural renewal and phasing? Göbekli Tepe transforms over time from grand circles to smaller rectangles rising layer by layer. Burying earlier rings stabilizes the hilltop and symbolizes renewal, treating the site as an evolving complex. Was it practical and environmental factors? The region is seismically active. Slopes shift, walls crack. Through burial, ruin is stayed and sanctity endures, a deed of reverence as much as reason. Or maybe was it the social transformation? This was the hinge of human history, from mobile foragers to more settled farmers. As rituals, economies, and identities shifted, old spaces may have felt bound to an older order. Closure could be a way to honor the past while making room for new forms of gathering. Notice how none of these exclude the others. A ritual farewell can also be a structural solution and a social statement. Göbekli Tepe isn't a lone miracle. Other pre-pottery Neolithic sites in the region, like Karahan Tepe and Navali Kori, show related traditions. Pillars, animal reliefs, communal architecture. Taken together, they suggest a cultural horizon experimenting with monumentality and meaning. Rather than a single mystery site, we're seeing a broader innovation in ritual architecture at the dawn of settled life. For all we can say, much remains unexcavated. How many rings lie untouched beneath the hill? Did enclosures differ by communities or seasons? Were some rooms roofed? How did sound behave inside those stone circles? Answers depend on meticulous excavation, conservation, and analysis, slow work that favors patience over headlines. Interpretations have already evolved over the last 2 decades. They will continue to sharpen as new data arrive. Today, Göbekli Tepe isn't just a ruin. It's a quiet pilgrimage at sunrise, where the carved fox on a T-pillar catches first light and the wind moves like a whisper through stone. Beneath protective canopies above Sanliurfa, you circle the rings on raised walkways, then step into the Sanliurfa Archaeology Museum where models, finds, and films stitch the story together. UNESCO's listing and new AR guides on site turn the hill into a classroom. The carvings speak, the timelines sharpen, and 10,000 years feel suddenly close. If you want to read deeper, start with the German Archaeological Institute's reports and field notes, then branch into accessible features from major museums and journals. And when you leave, you carry a quiet lesson the builders left behind. Some endings are deliberate, and some sacred places are meant to be tucked gently back into the earth. Thank you for exploring Göbekli Tepe with Mythantis. Please subscribe, like, and share.